All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to our college planning workshop for 8th, 9th, and 10th grade families. My name is Kendra Cantrell. I'm the Director of Guidance here. This is my 10th year at Tantasqua, and I feel very fortunate to work in such a phenomenal district that really cares about its students and puts so much support and money and time into the guidance services that we offer. We're a very fully staffed guidance department, which is not what you'll find at a lot of schools across the country. So it's wonderful to work here and to be valued and have our work be valued and to be able to help your students through this very exciting and stressful process of college planning. I have a 5.5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 9-month-old, and so I cannot imagine how much is going to change by the time they're off to college. So I can, even though I know a fair amount about whoa. Are we good? Thank you, Mr. Watchett there. Even though I know a fair amount about college planning, it's different when you're going through it, for sure. And so parents, I appreciate you being here and trying to get every piece of information that you can to guide your student in the best way possible so that they have a fulfilling 4 years at their post-secondary place where they learn. So the presentation should last about an hour tonight, and then there'll be question and answer at the end if there's anything that we haven't covered. If you have a question in the middle of the presentation, I have no problem with you raising your hand and stopping me, and we can answer it then, for sure. So without further ado, let's get going. So in June of 2021, 2022, or 2023, your kids are going to be in the cap and gown. It seems amazing to think about, but it's coming very fast. And so there's a lot of things that students can do after high school. The first option is a parent favorite, stay home, video games in the basement kind of thing, right? Work is absolutely an option. A lot of our students go off into the employment world. The military, technical schools, which are schools that teach a certification of some kind. It could be like cosmetology, it could be HVAC, something of that nature. And then there's also the 2- and 4-year colleges. Community colleges are the 2-year schools, and then your typical bachelor's degree institutions are your 4-year schools. And historically here at Tantasqua, 8 out of 10 of our students go off to a 2-year or 4-year plan. And the other 2 are kind of scattered between the other options listed above. And so we're going to talk today about the 4-year college experience, as that is what requires the most thought and previous planning. So we understand that education beyond high school is valuable. It impacts how much money a student can make in their lifetime, and the quality of the high school preparation determines what options they have available to them after high school. So if they do a really nice job of taking advantage of all the opportunities we afford students here at the high school in terms of rigorous courses, extracurriculars, wonderful teacher connections, internships, they're going to have a lot of choices at the end of the day when they're thinking about what they might want to do after high school. And there is a college for everyone. I truly believe that, and I know it to be true. A lot of students get hung up on the idea that there's a bumper, if they know the college from the bumper sticker, then that's the only good college to go to. And if they have never heard of it, it doesn't exist, it's not worth checking out. Well, the reality is there's thousands upon thousands of schools across the country that a lot of students have never even heard of that are phenomenal and fantastic and could be absolutely the right fit for them. Also, there's not just one college that is the right college for your student. There's probably many colleges, 5 to 10 schools or more, that they would absolutely be happy at and be a great fit for. So it really is about exploring and giving your student as many options as possible so that when they go to apply to schools, there's just a wide range to choose from. So let's talk about what colleges look for in a student's application. So here are the things that we call the college acceptance factors. These are the different touch points that the college admissions officers are going to be looking at for your student. And we're going to go over all of these in greater depth. But this is the list. The rigor of the high school transcript, the grade point average, rank in class, which is connected to GPA, it's based on GPA, college entrance test scores, either the SAT or the ACT, activities, interests, accomplishments, and then finally the letters of recommendation and the essay. So the more selective a college your student is looking at, the more closely they're going to be scrutinizing these factors. Because if you can imagine, there are thousands of students around the country who probably have the same GPA, the same rank, similar transcript as your student. And so there's opportunities for your student to stand out. And that comes in the form of the letters recommendation, the essay, and the activities, interests, and accomplishments. And we'll talk about all of these in greater depth. So the first and most important thing to do in high school is to earn good grades. That is the cornerstone of any college application. It's a strong transcript. And that means the best effort in the most challenging courses possible. Now, a lot of students may be thinking to themselves, well, you know, I'm getting a solid A+ in CPA English class. Why would I want to challenge myself? Why would I want to move up to an honors level or an AP level class? The colleges know all the different courses that we offer. And we offer about 17 AP classes and I think it's 83 honors classes. So we have a huge amount of classes that students can challenge themselves with. And if a college sees that your student is kind of hanging on at the same level and excelling, they're going to wonder why they haven't challenged themselves. They're going to wonder why they haven't stretched themselves. Even if that grade isn't an A, they want to see your students stretch and challenge themselves so that they can earn solid grades, but also show the rigor of their transcript. Our course levels here, as you can see, we have AP again, that's college level coursework here at the high school. Students can earn college credit for those classes. I had a recent graduate come back and say that he was able, with his AP classes here, he's going to graduate a semester early from college and save himself about $26,000 because he took AP classes, passed the test, and the college gave him credit for those classes. So that's always a really nice, added benefit to challenging yourself. We have honors courses, we have college preparatory advanced, and then college preparatory. So those are 4 different levels here. We want your student to really maintain at least an A, B, or C average. And we'll talk about why a C average, that 2.0, is kind of a benchmark where opportunities start to shift a little bit if you're below that benchmark. And we'll talk about that, as I said, in depth later on. We also want your student to exceed Tantasqua graduation minimums. So for example, we only require 3 years of math, 3 years of science, 3 years of history. We want your student to take an English, math, history, science class every semester, not every semester, but every year, so that they're exceeding those minimums and showing that they're really trying to challenge themselves. Additionally, we don't require foreign language to graduate, but a lot of colleges require it, and if you're one of those wonderful souls who excels at foreign language, that can really differentiate you between other students who maybe aren't in Spanish 5 or aren't in French 4. Okay? So again, it's about rigorous senior year course load as well. Gone are the days of underwater basket weaving and 10 gyms senior year. They really want you to be pushing yourself all the way through second semester senior year. And they will be looking at those courses. We send your current schedule to them twice a year to let them know in senior year what you're taking both semesters. And so again, you really need to look at senior year as an extension of junior year. Back in the day, it used to be junior year, right? That was the big year where you really challenge yourself. It's now junior and senior year. The colleges are so competitive these days, you can't stop for a minute. And then again, strong grades throughout. Now, GPA and rank, that's another piece that's connected to the rigor of the transcript and those grades on the transcript. So if you know, GPA is when the grades you receive in academic subjects are converted to points and then they're averaged. And so, math, English, science, history, foreign language, and the technical division core courses are what go into your grade point average. And that grade point average chart is listed in our program of studies, so you can see exactly what everything is worth. You had a question.
Is this going to be available somewhere so that you don't take notes?
Yes, so I usually post it on the web the day after, and they also videotape me. Hello, media students. And so that will also be posted on the web as well. Great question. So again, the final grades are added, are created into points, turned into points, and then they're averaged together. And that is recalculated at every semester's end. And so every semester, your student will be receiving a new grade point average. Now this determines the class rank. So a few years ago, our valedictorian had a 4.78 GPA. He was number 1. And then let's say person who had 3.79 was maybe ranked number 99. It all depends on the rest of the class and their GPAs and where you fall, and that creates your rank. Now, the GPA is cumulative over high school, meaning it starts the second they walk through the door in 9th grade, and it continues on until the end of their senior year. And all of those grades continue to add together and be averaged. So that means that freshman year counts just as much as senior year, for example. So we try to talk to our students about this and explain to them that freshman year is just as important as your senior year in a lot of ways, because you're starting yourself off and trying to get as strong a GPA to start out your high school career as possible, and then it can only build up from there. Unfortunately, sometimes you see students who are a little slower to the transition of high school, and they find that their GPAs in freshman year is a little bit low. It can obviously come back from that point, but it will never get as high as it could have been if they had just started off strong from the very beginning. So again, it's really important for your student to understand that 9th grade is also a critical year for them. Now, our GPAs and ranks are sent to colleges at a few different points. The first time they're sent to college is in the fall of senior year. And so they are going to receive the freshman, sophomore, and junior year cumulative GPA and rank. So that's why we also talk about junior year being such an important year, is because at the end of junior year, whatever their GPA and rank is, that's what gets sent off to colleges in the fall. Okay? Are there any questions about grade point average or rank? So that's the first piece. Rigor of transcript, grade point average, rank. All of those academic components, starting off strong, challenging yourself, doing well. The next component is standardized tests. We all love them. We love to hate them. Standardized tests are required by most colleges as a part of the admissions process. And most students in our area are taking the SAT as opposed to the ACT. Has anyone ever heard of the ACT before? So the ACT is very popular in the Midwest because it was created in Iowa. And out here we have the College Board and SAT and PSATs and subject tests because the College Board was based out of New Jersey. So it's really a New England, kind of invention. And so our students are typically taking the SATs, but we also can encourage them to take the ACTs as well. It's another type of college entrance test. It's equivalent to the SAT in how it's used by colleges. They don't care if they have an SAT score or an ACT score to look at. It doesn't matter to them. There are some small differences between the two types of tests. The SAT is more memorization, and it doesn't have a science component. The ACT is a little bit more about what you remember from your high school classes. There's a science and technology part. So some kids do a little bit better in one or the other, but most often scores are about equivalent between the SAT and the ACT. So again, PSATs are not counted towards the college admission process. They're really just that practice that kids will take in 10th and 11th grade. And then in senior year, students are taking the SAT and the ACT to really try and use those for college applications. So again, PSATs, it's that optional test taken during the fall of sophomore year and junior year. It's a total practice test. There is no, there's nothing that counts. And scores are not reported to any colleges, so it really is just for their knowledge. And the junior scores may qualify them for the National Merit Scholarship, but again, that's just a part of the test. It's not like they have to do anything specific to qualify, but if they do very well as a junior, they certainly could receive the National Merit Scholarship, which is hard to do, but we've had a few kids become semifinalists. The PSAT is administered every October, and it is an optional experience for your 10th and 11th grade student. It's on a Saturday. You have to pay about $24, but again, it's just for practice, just so your student can get really used to the format of the test. The great thing that I think about the PSAT that's a selling point for me and for the families that I work with is that PSAT has partnered with Khan Academy. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Khan Academy in here. They're a fantastic web platform that has pretty much every topic under the sun, free videos, free step-by-step instructions and lessons by professors of the subject. and it's all free for anyone's use. And I know a lot of kids, go home and work through, problems in science or problems in math through Khan Academy videos. They're really helpful in reinforcing information. Now, the great thing that Khan Academy has done is they've partnered with the College Board. And so what that means is your student, if they took the PSATs, get a free, personalized PSAT, SAT prep program that's created just for them based on their strengths and weaknesses on the PSAT. So instead of getting those giant books, if you remember, flipping through page after page of practice tests, those days are gone. Really what we're hoping students will do is take the PSAT, link their account to Khan Academy, and start working through those online practice tests and practice programs that was really personalized just for them based on how they did on the PSAT. Any questions about the PSATs? The SAT, as you may have like a PTSD response to the word, I know I do a little bit. There's now 2 subtests again. It changed for a while, now it's gone back to kind of its old format. And you have a reading, writing section and a math section. The score ranges 200 to 800 for each section, so again, the high score is a 1600. That's a perfect score. The essay is optional now. However, it's important for a student to take the essay because there are some schools that will only accept the SAT with the essay. And if your student took the SAT but didn't take the essay, they couldn't apply to that college. So that's why we always talk to them about taking the PSATs, then taking the SATs, and doing it with the optional essay. The other thing to note about the SATs is that we encourage them to take it multiple times to no more than 3 times. So that would look like taking it once in the spring of junior year, and then again in the fall of senior year, maybe twice in the fall of senior year. The reason we say not to take it any sooner than that is because we want the students to be exposed to our English and math curriculum as much as possible before they take the test. If they were to take the test in March, for example, instead of May or June of junior year, they're going to miss the last 3 months of math, and that never goes well. So we really want them to be exposed to the entire year's worth of curriculum. The colleges are great, and they use the best scores. It's called super scoring. So they're going to take the highest attempt, or the highest score for English and the highest score for math, no matter what attempt. If they sat in May, June, October, they're just going to cherry pick the highest score for every test to make the highest super score possible. And that's what they'll use to determine your student's acceptance or not. Now, we offer the SAT here 5 times a year. So May, June, October, November, and December. And it's great, it's very convenient for our students. They can just sign right up online, come in on a Saturday, take it and get it done with. They don't have to travel anywhere. Any questions on the SAT? The subject tests are a little less known. And the subject tests are 1-hour exams in one subject. That would be chemistry, biology, math level 1, U.S. history, etc. These are only required at usually the most selective of colleges. A lot of schools are not looking for these at all. But the really high-powered Ivy League schools, you will be seeing subject tests required. Now, we usually recommend that a student takes the subject test at the conclusion of an advanced course. So if they took chemistry honors in sophomore year, we might suggest that they take the chem subject test in sophomore year so that they have the most, the best opportunity to do well because everything's fresh in their memory at that time. Again, though, these are only for the most selective schools. So if you have a really high-powered student who's really looking at some highly selective colleges, they should work with their guidance counselor to figure out if taking the subject test is appropriate for them. They're also, the score range is the same, 200 to 800 as a high score, and it's administered at the same time as the SAT. So May, June, October, November, and December. As I said, the ACT is a little bit of a different test, not really familiar around here, but accepted by every college that I know. The score range is completely different, 1 to 36, so it's a little interesting. And they have all of these sub-scores, English, math, reading, science, and writing. They also have an optional essay. Now, we don't offer the ACTs anymore. We used to for a long time, but then our registration numbers just dwindled and it didn't make financial sense to offer it anymore. But they are offered in Worcester and Munson, so kids certainly can travel not too far and be able to take those. And this can be substituted for SATs and SAT subject tests at every college that I'm aware of. So again, if your student really loves science and they feel like they want to give the ACTs a shot, they absolutely can, and the colleges will accept those in place of the SAT. Any questions about the standardized testing? Yes. Oops, sorry. Hi, Cadence. Yes.
Like if you're taking an AP class and only take the AP test as well as the subject test, like how do they compare in difficulty?
That's a great question. So I would say that they're used for very different things. So the AP exams are trying to figure out if you have mastered the content and curriculum in an AP course specifically. Math Level 1 subject test tests your knowledge on Algebra 1, Algebra 2, geometry. Math Level 2 brings a bit of calc in there. So they're kind of looking for different things. Also, the AP exams are used to give you college credit for courses, where the SAT subject tests are used for college admission. They're not going to look at your AP scores for admission. They're going to look at those scores after you've been accepted to see if you can get some college credit back. Does that make sense, my dear?
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the question is, if you can take the SAT in October, November, and December, why wouldn't you just want to take it in December, give yourself those extra 3 months of study? So it really does depend on the college deadlines. Unfortunately, there's this huge push now for every kid to apply early. We've never seen anything like it. Every year there's more and more early applications. And early applications now means November 1. So if you take the November 7th test and you're shooting for a November 1 deadline, the college is going to be waiting for those scores and they're not going to be happy about it. So the October test is really for those kids thinking they'll apply for November 1, November 15th. The November-December tests are for students who are thinking they might not apply till January, February. Kind of depends on that application timeline. Yes? They do not add your composite, because it's a 1 to 36 or a 200 to 800. They're not going to cherry pick an SAT score and an ACT score together, but they will do that for all the SAT administrations, for sure. Yes, Mr. Boyce?
Yeah, well, what's the turnaround for SAT scoring these days?
Yep.
You know, if you're trying to decide whether to push off or retake.
Sure. So the SAT turnaround is pretty good now. Everything's electronified, so if you take the test in the first Saturday of October, they're usually the first Saturday of the month, you'll usually get the scores back in a little less than 3 weeks, and then at that time you can decide to send those scores off to the college, and that takes another 2 weeks or so. Any other questions about standardized testing? Yes?
Do you guys offer like a Kaplan or SAT prep course or anything?
We don't. I think they're very expensive, and I think that the Khan Academy resources are just as good and free and personalized. So that's the road we've been kind of going down as a public school. But I know that there's a lot of places that do offer the Kaplan and all those kind of for-profit SAT prep programs for sure. Also, Mr. Lucas every spring offers a SAT program here. You just have to pay for the cost of the materials, which is under, I think, $100. And then you get to come every Saturday and work on writing and math and reading. And so that's another opportunity, too, for students. Yes?
For the SAT subject test, is it the kind of thing where you have to take all of them, or can you just say, I'm really interested in English, I want to take English?
Absolutely. You can pick exactly which ones you want to take. And they're offered at the same time as the SATs. So your student can either sit for the big SAT reasoning, 3.5-hour test, or they could sit for up to 3 subject tests. So that could be history, chem, English, it could be math, U.S. history, English, whatever that student wants to take. It's totally their choice. Any other standardized testing questions? Okay. So now we've, test prep, so, and a lot of your questions related to this. So the best preparation really is to work hard in challenging classes, because the core content that's taught here is really what's going to prepare them for doing well in these exams. Also, taking the PSATs is very helpful. Getting used to the format of the test, getting used to the timed nature of the test. If you remember, MCAS, our wonderful state standardized testing, is untimed. So kids can really take as long as they want to get through the test. On the SAT, everything is timed down to the minute, and you want your student to understand what it's like to kind of work with some urgency through a test so that they don't miss a bunch of questions because they ran out of time. So that's the other value in taking the PSATs in the sophomore and the junior year. There are other resources that are available. There's so many now with technology. There's SAT Question of the Day. It's an app on your phone, and you can get one question from an old SAT emailed to you every day. You can answer it. It'll tell you why you're right or why you're wrong. It's a great way to just kind of stay working on it all the time without really noticing it. There's also a similar feature, ACT Question of the Day. On the College Board and ACT websites, there's free full practice tests that you can do. Again, those big books are gone. Everything's gone digital. Khan Academy, as I said, is a fantastic resource. And then there's also private companies and test books. You can go grab it, Amazon or Walmart. So there's a lot of different resources out there to help your student prepare. All right, so rigor of transcript, GPA and rank, standardized testing. Those are all kind of the heavy hitters, but now we're getting into the features that are much more personalized for your student and can really help your student stand out from everybody else who may have a similar GPA, a similar transcript, and similar test scores. So colleges really like well-rounded students. And I heard the admissions counselor from Yale, and she was talking about how colleges are living communities. They're not just accepting students who are going to go to class and then leave. They're accepting students who are going to live and breathe on that campus and be part of that community. And so they want to know that your student is going to add to that community by being involved in extracurriculars, whether that's dance, student government, sports, whatever it might be. They don't want students who are going to just go back to their dorm rooms and play video games all day. And we've heard that from a lot of them over and over. So they're really looking for kids who have involved themselves in a variety of things in their community. All students can be involved in something. I'm a firm believer that there's something here at Tantasqua for every student. We have approaching 70 clubs and activities, from anime, from the Anti-Defamation League, from gaming club, we have drama, show choir, sports, we have everything. And so I really find it hard when a kid says, oh, I don't like anything here. Well, let me show you. I can show you a list of 70 clubs. So we're happy to connect your student with a club or activity that they might be interested in, but it is really important for them to start getting involved as soon as possible. Not only for college, but just for life. I think connected kids are happier kids, and we want them to be connected to organizations here that mean something to them. And I love this phrase, depth is better than width, and width is better than no involvement. So what that means is, we want to see students, and colleges want to see students, that have involved themselves in a handful of activities for 4 years or 3 years, as opposed to a student who has involved themselves in 20 activities for 1 year, a few months at a time. Involving yourself in a few things here and there is better than doing nothing at all. But really, we're trying to instill in them kind of a commitment, responsibility, connecting themselves to something for a long haul, because that's what the colleges, feel will help and add to their college community. High school clubs, again, we have so many. There's publications and sports and student government, drama, music. You can see all of our beautiful show choir seniors behind you on the wall. We have a million different things here that your student can do. Also in the community, there's volunteer work, there's church groups, there is dance, sports, scouting. It's whatever you want to do, and this community is wonderful, and we have so many different opportunities. But we try to tell them not to wait until junior or senior year to become involved. A quick story, I had a student, he was outstanding academically. It came so easily to him. And he probably had a 4.2 GPA. I mean, this kid was talented, and it did not take him a long time to do well or to learn things. He just picked it up quickly. And then when we got to his activity resume, there was absolutely nothing on it. He had literally gone home and played video games every day because he didn't really think there was an importance to that. And he was applying to some really challenging schools. And unfortunately, he did not get in. And I know it wasn't because of the academic piece, because he was absolutely more than qualified in that respect. But they did not feel that he was going to bring enough to their academic living community, and that, I think was the reason he did not get accepted into those really rigorous schools. So again, it does matter, and the colleges will be looking at that. Are there any questions about the activities piece? Yes.
I have my oldest student at competitive
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right. That's depth. That's depth. And I find this all the time. You have your competitive dancers or your competitive equestrians or something, and that they really can't do anything else because they're at the studio 5, 6, 7 days a week. So colleges understand that, and they look very favorably on students who have committed themselves that much. For sure. That's not an issue at all. Any other questions on activities? Okay. So in addition to activities, there we go. We move to letters of recommendation, which is another critical component for the college application process. So typically, each student is going to ask 2 teachers and their guidance counselor to write them a letter of recommendation. Now, we will, without even being asked, write a letter for your student as a counselor. We plan to write a letter for every student who is applying to college. So that's nothing that they have to worry about. Our letter really focuses on them as a holistic kind of person. We're talking about the academics. We're talking about the extracurriculars. We're talking about their personality, their character, their integrity. We're talking about maybe any life circumstances that may have impacted their ability to be as successful in high school as they could have been otherwise. So our letter really is kind of the broad brush picture of your child. The teacher letters are a little different. They're talking about what that student is like in the classroom. So for example, I see my students and I have very nice relationships with them, but I don't know if they're raising their hand every 5 minutes in class or if they're sitting in the back kind of soaking it in. This is where that teacher letter can be very, very helpful. They're going to talk about maybe the biggest challenge they overcame, a wonderful project or presentation or essay they may have done, their demeanor in the classroom, their interactions with their peers in the classroom, their leadership abilities. All of those different things are covered by the teacher letter. Pardon me. So a good strategy is to have your student ask teachers that they've had junior year. Junior year is really a great year to ask because the teachers don't have to think back to freshman year when, 4 years ago, maybe your child's quite different after 4 years, or maybe they don't have a great recollection of what they were like in the classroom. But junior year teachers, it's fresh in their minds and they're ready to talk about your student as a future college applicant. Also, they can think about teachers they've had more than once. Sometimes teachers have multiple, the same math teacher for multiple courses or the same English teacher, and those connections are really powerful and can be perfect to use in letters of recommendation. That teacher is going to have a lot to say about your child after seeing them multiple times. The other thought is that your child should be asking a teacher in an area, in a subject area that connects with their future major. So if you have a nursing, student, a potential nursing student, you would want to be asking your math and your science teachers so they can speak to your critical thinking skills, problem-solving skills, and other criteria that kind of makes sense for that major. So again, a good strategy is to ask someone you've had in class junior year or a teacher you've had more than once. And then additional letters can be written by a lot of different people. Pastors, internship coordinators, coaches. Again, the colleges are going to maybe accept these, but maybe not. A lot of colleges are putting limits now on how many letters can be submitted because they just have too many letters to read in general. But if it's something very powerful and important and connects to your students' future plans, we can always work to help them, get that letter in place. For example, we have a lot of students doing internships at the elementary schools because they're planning to be teachers in the future. Those internship letters from their teacher supervisors can be very powerful and important because they're speaking to their potential as a future educator. So again, sometimes the letters make all the sense in the world and you want to, get those into the school if possible. Sometimes they're just not necessary or they won't even accept them. It just all depends on the college as well. Any questions on letters of recommendation? Okay. The last kind of piece of the puzzle is the college essay. And I think nothing inspires more fear in students than the college essay. There's a lot of pressure to write something life-changing, phenomenal, that'll be remembered till the dawn of time. The reality is that these poor admissions counselors are reading thousands upon thousands of essays. And you want to stand out, of course, but you don't have to write about some amazingly wonderful or amazingly traumatic incident to be remembered. Every college admissions officer that I have talked to has told me that the most impactful letters of recommendation are about everyday topics, something ordinary in life that has now taken on, through their writing, a really extraordinary kind of feel. For example, I was talking to the George Washington admission rep, and I said, what was the best letter you received this year? And she said, the best letter I got this year was from a girl up in New Hampshire who talked about maple syrup and collecting maple syrup in the forest. And that was the letter. It doesn't sound very exciting, but she said that the way she wrote it was just touching and memorable. Another student essay that stuck out to the Boston College rep that I spoke with, she said it was about the student's dresser in her bedroom. She said there was this dresser in her bedroom, and over the years the girl had painted it, colored it with markers, covered it in stickers, kind of destroyed the thing. And then she asked her mother, I want to get rid of this. I need something a little bit more mature looking in my room. And the mom said, no, this is who you are. And she kind of went through how the dresser kind of shaped her and symbolized her transition into becoming an adult. And that letter for the Boston College rep was the best one of the season, and that was it. So again, it doesn't have to be you overcame some horrific incident in your life. It just can be about you, as long as it's your voice and your spirit coming across the page. So again, the essay is really the most important part of the college application. It's allowing that student to share their voice, to separate them from all the other kids with similar test scores, similar GPAs, similar ranks, and really stand out. And it brings them to life, which I think is great. And again, it's not the most traumatic event or most amazing event. It's just ordinary topics can be extraordinary when done well. Any questions on the essay? So the Common Essay, does everyone know what the Common App is? Maybe some do, some don't. So the Common Application is one college application that is used for hundreds and hundreds of colleges. So if your student was applying to 10 schools that accepted the Common Application, they would do the Common App once and send that to all 10 schools. So it can be really useful and time-saving, and most students will be applying through the Common App these days. Most colleges are using the Common App. So these are the essay prompts for the Common Application essay for this school year. And so just to give you a sense of kind of what these essay topics might be. So some students have a background, identity, or talent that's so meaningful, they believe their application would be incomplete without it. If this sounds like you, share your story. Or reflect on a time when you questioned or challenged a belief or idea. Or describe an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth. Describe a topic you find so engaging it makes you lose all track of time. Why does it captivate you? So again, they're very open-ended questions, and a student really could write about anything and have them fit into one of these essay topic prompts. But that is the sort of thing that your student will need to start thinking about. What could they talk about to really stand out in the crowd? Okay. So now that we've talked about the college acceptance factors and all the different things that a college application, college admissions officer will be looking at in an application, I wanted to talk a little bit about finances, community colleges, public and private colleges, and what the difference is. So as you know, we have public and private colleges in state, and this would work. So public means there's tax dollars supported by you and by me. And they're less costly for Massachusetts residents because we subsidize them with our tax dollars. And so examples of public schools in state are all of the UMasses, so Boston, Lowell, Dartmouth, and Amherst, and all of the state universities, Westfield, Worcester, Fitchburg, Framingham, Salem, Bridgewater, etc. The private tuition-funded colleges are usually more costly just at the outset. This is not to say that financial aid packages don't come out that make public and private colleges cost the same for families, because that does happen all the time. But you just need to be aware that the cost up front is going to look very different between a public and a private college. There's also out-of-state public schools, like UConn, University of Connecticut, UNH, University of Rhode Island, UVM, University of Vermont. These are middle ground. So they're not in-state for us, but they're still public institutions. And so their costs are a little bit more in between the private and the public in-state institutions. So, so we really want to make sure that all of our students are able to apply to the in-state public institutions, because they're affordable for families, and also they're just fantastic schools. We're very lucky to live in Massachusetts because our public institutions are on par with a lot of the most well-respected private schools across the country. Like UMass Amherst, people are clamoring to get into UMass Amherst. It's a phenomenal school. And because they're tax dollar supported, the colleges have decided that there are certain requirements to even apply to these schools. And they can do that because they're public and there's so many kids who are wanting to attend them. So here is why that GPA starts to matter. And I mentioned this earlier in the presentation. So their first requirement is that a student has to have a 3.0 or better to apply. That's a B average. A lot of kids, that's not a problem. Some kids, they're struggling to get there because freshman year and sophomore year were a little rocky. And so we always want to really impress upon our students that, having good grades starts at the very first day of high school, because you want to make sure you can get a 3.0 so that these options are available to you right after high school. There is thankfully something called the sliding scale. So if a student has between a 2.99 and a 2.0 GPA, they can still apply if they meet certain SAT or ACT score minimums. So then that's where that standardized testing piece comes in. So if your GPA is a C, like a B minus or a C average, you have to have strong SAT scores to be able to apply. If you have below a 1.99 or below, you cannot apply to these schools directly after high school, and you would need to go to a community college for 2 years or 1 year and then try and transfer to them at that point. There's also course requirements for these schools. You need to have our graduation requirements completed, which every student will with their diploma, but then there's also 2 things in addition to that. They need to have a math beyond Algebra 2 in senior year. So we talked about that senior year rigor not ending. They have to have a math course in their senior year schedule. And they also need to have at least 2 years of foreign language courses in the same language. That could be French 1 and 2, Spanish 3 and 4, doesn't matter what it is. There is a waiver for tech division students because they understand, as a state, we understand that sometimes the technical division students just don't simply have room in their schedules to take the foreign language courses. And so there are some exceptions and some other things they can do to get that foreign language requirement waived. Are there any questions about these math standards? Yes? Yes, because we have a year's worth of curriculum in 1 semester. So French 1, French 2, you could get that done in 1 year, but that would be 2 years. Yeah. Yes?
Does the junior high foreign language courses count at all?
They do not. It's only from 9th grade on. Any questions, other questions? So private admission standards. They're not beholden by tax dollars, so they can set any criteria they want to accept a student or not accept a student. And so there's a wide range of acceptance criteria and acceptance selectivity. So some colleges, less than 10% are accepted. And then some colleges are accepting almost every student that applies. It really depends on the college itself. There's also a phenomenal community college world here in Massachusetts. Quincy was one of the fastest growing community colleges in the country for a long time. And we have some great programs under mass transfer. So I want to talk about those for a minute. So again, we talked about how maybe if you couldn't head right off to a four-year state school like UMass Amherst right away, you might have to go to the community colleges at first to transfer in. So there is this great mass transfer program. So you could do 2 years at a community college and then finish up the last 2 years at the bachelor's degree program and get your bachelor's degree after 4 years, just 2 at the community college, 2 at the four-year institution. If you get a 2.0 final GPA at the community college, you get and your associate's degree, there's some benefits. You get a free application, you get a full transfer of all your credits towards your bachelor's degree, and you automatically satisfy all the distribution core requirements at that new school that you're transferring to. If you have a 2.5 GPA at the community college or higher, you get all of the above and guaranteed admission to the four-year state institution. So that could be UMass Amherst, that could be UMass Lowell, Worcester State, whatever it might be. And if you have a 3.0 final GPA in your associate's degree, you get all those benefits above, including a guaranteed admission, and you also get a 33% tuition waiver at UMass Amherst and UMass Lowell, which are the most expensive of the public institutions. So there are definitely some benefits to going this route, and there's a lot of students who absolutely could have gone right off to UMass Amherst, for example, but have decided not to. They've decided to go to the community college first to save money so that they're not in debt for the rest of their, natural-born lives, and they're still getting a bachelor's degree at UMass Amherst. And no one's questioning, well, where did you go for the first 2 years? It doesn't matter. They're just going to see the bachelor's degree hanging in the frame in your office, and it's going to say UMass Amherst. So again, this is a great option, not only for students who academically maybe can't jump into that four-year institution right away, but also for students who, for numerous reasons, financial, home life, whatever, really are not ready to jump into that four-year institution and want that community college experience for 2 years first. Are there any questions about this, the 2-year programs? So what I usually recommend to students who are maybe a little bit on the border between, maybe the four-year institutions are going to go well, maybe they won't. I usually have them apply to Quinsigamond Community College or Springfield Technical Community College in addition to those four-year schools at the same time in the fall. We have Quinsigamond come 2 times a year for instant decision days, and so what that means is that our admission rep gets a copy of the student's transcript if they've signed up for a slot. They interview them for 5 minutes, and they're conditionally accepted to the community college on the spot. And as long as they get their diploma, they're in Quinsig. And then that's kind of a backup plan for them while they're applying to the other four-year schools. Just in case things don't go according to plan, they have that in their back pocket. So it's all done simultaneously. Yep. Any other questions about this? Yes?
Even if you're a good student, you may not get into UMass Amherst. It's so competitive right now. Is this the route you would recommend them to take it back if they really want it?
Well, I would always encourage them to apply straight off the bat to UMass Amherst if they're a strong student. The average GPA for UMass Amherst this year was a 3.78. So that's really high. That's an A- average. And they get thousands and thousands of applications every year. We actually have a great track record, though, with them. They love our kids, and they accept a lot of our students every year. But I think there's also a lot of value to these programs, financially as well. I'll talk about, in the next slide, I'll talk about an articulation agreement that's really spectacular. That's a reason that a kid might want to do this first, the community college route first. Any other questions on this? So, oh yeah, I forgot this doesn't. So the articulation agreements are a little different because they're between the community colleges and private colleges in the area. So the 2+2 mass transfer was public to public, right? This is public community college to private college. And they have over, Quinsig, for example, has over 65 articulation agreements with 25 institutions. So engineering, business administration, computer science, dental hygiene, liberal arts, nurses education, etc. And the great program that I love is that there's an articulation agreement with WPI. So you can have a student who goes off to Quinsig for 2 years, and then they can get their master's degree from WPI in 3 more years. So it's a 5-year program, and they're saving 2 years worth of WPI prices for 2 years. And it's a little easier to get in, obviously, as a transfer as opposed to right away after high school sometimes. So that's another benefit. You know, there's a lot of benefits to starting at a community college for a lot of reasons. And I find that these, especially the engineering with WPI, the environmental, the computer science, those WPI articulation agreements are really fantastic. And I think we've had a lot of kids take advantage of them, and they should have. They're fabulous plans, I think, for a lot of students. Any other questions on the articulation agreements? Okay. So at the end of the day, though, there is a college for every student. And the options really depend on how prepared they were during high school. And fit is really the most important piece. As I said, there's not just one college out there for every student, and you have to find it like a needle in a haystack. It's really about figuring out what is important to your student, what drives them, what is really going to matter to them at that 4-year institution, and then to find, you know, the 5-10 schools that meet that criteria. And I really always get, you know, I try to really work with my students on keeping an open mind, keeping not locked in on one college, because that can be a very difficult experience if your heart is set on only one place and you think only one place will make you happy. So I hope that you'll join me in kind of working with your students to keep their minds open and really exploring a lot of different schools and talking about fit with them. So this is the sad part of my presentation. I always like debate, like, do I just take it out? Do I just like let you blindly enjoy your lives and not know the economic disaster that's all looming for us all as parents? But I feel like I have to just talk about it. So there's counselors standing by if you need to talk through. I can counsel you at the end, no problem. Okay, so here's the nitty-gritty, my friends, and we'll try to go fast and furious through it. So I just wanted to give some public and private cost examples so you have a sense of things. So for 2019-20, that's the upcoming school year for UMass Amherst, tuition and fees are $16,000 and change, room and board is $13,000 and change. The total cost per year is about $29,000 to $30,000 here. The costs go up every year, so this is not going to stay what it is for 4 years. It'll creep up very slowly every year, but that's where it starts off for next year's freshmen.
Is that in-state?
That's in-state. WPI, a little different, $53,000 tuition and fees, room and board, $15,000, total cost per year, $68,000 a year. So when I talk about that 2-year option to WPI, I'm talking saving like $130,000. So might be worth thinking about, for sure. And I mean, when my little baby is 18, I don't even know what it's going to cost. I mean, I don't even know. Don't even want to think about it. All right, so our next, again, $29,876 for UMass Amherst. I wanted to compare it to a public out-of-state college. That's that middle ground. So again, it's not a private institution, but it's not an in-state public, it's an out-of-state public. $47,000 per year. So about $20,000 less than WPI a year, but obviously about $18,000 more than the state schools per year. So again, this is why we talk about the importance of a 3.0, so that your students can apply to these public institutions and have them as options. It just matters, and it matters from the minute you walk in the door, unfortunately. So that's really why we talk about this piece of the puzzle. You want to have these in-state public options as choices for your students. So here's kind of a community college cost example. Quinn-Sig is $6,500 a year. If there's no room and board, because it's not a boarding institution, it's a commuter institution. And Worcester State, for example, is tuition and fees. And so this is not with room and board. This is just tuition and fees in terms of the comparison. So Worcester State's $10,000 a year. Over 4 years, that's $40,000. If you started at Quinn-Sig, it's $33,000, saving you about $7,300. UMass Amherst, 15 is for tuition a year. 4-year tuition is $61,000. 4-year cost with a Quinn-Sig start is $43,000, saving you about $18,000 if you started at Quinn-Sig first and then went to UMass Amherst. WPI, $53,000 a year for tuition and fees. Over 4 years, that would cost you $210,000. If you started at Quinn-Sig for 2 years, it's only $718,000, saving you $92,000. So again, kind of thinking about what this would look like coming from the community college. Is everybody okay? Any tissues? I know we're not okay, aren't we? We're just not okay. Should I take those slides out? Is it too much? I don't know. Okay, well, let me know after the presentation if this scarred you for life. I don't want that. All right, so financial aid, we would like it. We love free money, right? The FAFSA is the form that you need to complete every year. It's the federal application for federal student, the free application for federal student aid. And you have to fill this out every single year for every single student, and it determines what they think your family should be able to contribute. It's the expected family contribution. Now, people look at this formula and they get their EFC back and it says, oh, I think your family should be able to pay $30,000 a year, so we're only going to give you $20,000 of financial aid. So, there's all federal formulas, it's based on your tax returns, but the more you kind of just become familiar with the FAFSA in advance, the better off you will be. Also in college financial aid packages, so there's loans, of course, there's work study, which is a small portion of a loan package, and then grants and scholarships, which are just off the top, you don't have to pay them back. A lot of our students get fabulous financial aid packages. One of my students, he just told me yesterday, he got $23,000 a year for 4 years from a private institution. So it's not to say that those scary costs that I showed you are what it is. Sometimes if you're kind of a big fish in a small pond, your student could get a lot of money because they're really trying to woo them there because their typical student is maybe a little less academically rigorous than they are. So, it's always really important to kind of look at a lot of different options of schools, some really selective schools, some not so selective schools, because there could be a financial benefit to getting into one of those lesser selective schools, and you could be financially compensated for that because they want you there. There's need-based aid, and then there's merit-based aid. It's all very complicated. I won't bore you with the details, but I will tell you that every year we have the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority come out, and they do a great presentation on financial aid explaining all the different pieces of the puzzle. So in senior year, you'll be able to go to that, or you can come in junior year too, and get that information so you can navigate this, because it is a little bit tricky for sure. So the first bullet's nonsense. You're not going to be able to save $200,000 for your child's education, but every little bit counts for the 403Bs. No, 5. What are the college saving plans? Why can't I think of the numbers? 529. Thank you, my friend. 529 plans are great. They actually do definitely help and offset. The other thing to think about is applying for aid early. If your student applies earlier in the year, like we talked about, that November, December, deadlines, money's there. And as your student waits longer, money runs out. And so that's part of the push, I think, for early action, early decision, because the pool of money is big and not tapped into as much. And the other thing is to be wanted, and we just talked about that. If a college thinks a student is more talented, kind of a little bit higher than their typical student, more aid could be offered. And I've seen that definitely happen a lot of times with students. They're getting nice packages because those colleges really want them there. Yes, of course.
When you say early decision, are most colleges now requiring that they go early decision and they commit right away? Or are they saying, we'll let you know and get back to us in May?
So that's the nature of early decision. If you apply early decision to a school and you are accepted, you have to go there. It's a binding agreement. Early action is non-binding, so you can apply, you get in early, you know early, but you don't have to commit until May 1st.
And do schools offer both, or just usually one or the other?
It depends. It depends. Some schools absolutely offer both. Some schools only offer early decision or early action. I know that Boston College just changed and they're no longer doing early action. They're only doing early decision because they have too many applicants and they want to know who's really committed to Boston College. So they've changed it to the binding agreement only. So it really depends on the schools individually. There are tuition waivers, which are helpful. Again, the tuition is the smallest part of your financial aid bill, but it definitely does help. There's the Stanley Z. Koplik tuition waiver and the John and Abigail Adams scholarship, and they are based on MCAS scores from 9th and 10th grade. So again, this is the other reason why we want to talk to our younger students about this. If they score proficient and advanced on all 3 of the tests, they are qualified. They're initially qualified for the Stanley Z. Koplik tuition waiver, and then they have to jump through some hoops with SAT subject tests and AP tests to fully qualify and get the money. And then the John and Abigail Adams scholarship is if you get proficient and advanced on your MCAS, and then you're in the top 25% of your class based on MCAS scores, not on GPA or rank, but if your MCAS scores are in the top 25% of the class, you will get the John and Abigail Adams scholarship. So that is free tuition for 4 years, and it can amount to about $7,000 at the most at UMass Amherst total. So it's money. $7,000 is good. We'll take it. So again, $7,000 at UMass. Worcester State, it's about $4,000, for example, total over 4 years. And then Quinsig, it's about $1,500 over the 2 years that a student would be at Quinsig. Any questions on the tuition waivers? And we don't find that out until October of senior year who receives those.
Hey, can you apply for both tuition waivers?
You can't apply. So here's the thing, my friend. So if you initially qualified for the Koplik, you may also qualify for Abigail Adams, and you don't have to do anything else to get the Abigail Adams scholarship. You just get the money. So if you qualified for both, the Abigail Adams trumps the Koplik, and you would not even worry about the Koplik scholarship. But if you were one of those students who only got the Koplik and not the Adams, you have to jump through those hoops with subject tests and AP tests to get the money. Does that make sense, Katie? Yeah. Okay. All right. Oh, it does. Okay. So where can you get help? So we are here for you to walk you through this whole process and to help you stay on track and keep your stress levels down. This is what we do every day, and we're happy to talk with you and help you. Even if your student is not coming over here for a while, you're absolutely more than welcome to talk with me or take my card up at the front or email me or call me. I'm happy to talk with anybody who has questions or concerns. So we have our freshman counselor, Anne-Marie Flanagan. She's phenomenal, and she's going to be giving a presentation after vacation on course selection for 8th grade students, so you'll get to meet her if you have an incoming 9th grade student. We have our sophomore technical division counselor, Mrs. Sawyer. She handles, again, those 10th grade tech students. And then the academic division, 10 through 12, are all split by last name. So I have last names A and B. Mrs. Coonan has C through H, Ms. McDermott has I through P, and Ms. Morrissey has Q through Z. And we're all absolutely willing and able to help and talk with you if you have any questions or concerns. And then there's also the technical division counselor for 11th and 12th grade, Mrs. O'Neill, and she's happy to touch base with any tech parents as well. We have our guidance webpage. There's a lot of great resources on there. A lot that we've talked about today is on there. I'll put the presentation up there as well. And then the MIFA website, again, they come every year to talk about financial aid with us, but there's also links there on the website to get some help with financial aid. So we have some future information sessions coming up. The school day course selection assembly for the class of 2022 was scheduled to be tomorrow. It was moved to Wednesday. It might not be Wednesday. I don't know what this weather's going to be, but it's going to hopefully be before break if the weather can work with us. The course selection sessions for the class at the junior high, for the junior high school. Again, we're supposed to be Wednesday. We'll see what the weather does. And then we have our course selection workshop presentation for the incoming 9th grade class and their parents and guardians at 5:30. And then on Wednesday, March 6th, we have our incoming 11th grade course selection presentation where we talk about picking classes for junior year to those current 10th grade students. So we have a lot of course selection stuff coming up. This is the time where your student really needs to think about rigor, think about appropriate challenge, really try and hone in on what they may be interested in for a major, so they're taking classes that connect with that major. And guidance meets with every single student individually. So we will sit with your student, talk with them, help them pick classes, really be thoughtful about that process, and then we'll send that form home to you for approval and signature. So don't panic. We absolutely don't let any student do this on their own. We work with every single student and have an individual meeting with them in the next few weeks. Questions, concerns?